Finally, a vote. The House takes up the Pain-Capable Child Protection Act, banning abortion after 20 weeks of pregnancy. Murder conviction recalled. We return to Philadelphia 2 years after late-term abortionist Kermit Gosnell's conviction. Commuter carnage. America's busiest rail corridor closes after a deadly Amtrak derailment. And apparition anniversary. Nearly a century ago, Mary appeared for the first time at Fatima, Portugal. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, May 13th, 2015. Good evening from Washington. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. A bill to ban most late-term abortions is debated in the House. Jason Calvi is at the Capitol tonight monitoring this developing story. Jason?
Brian, the bill would ban most abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy because it says that's when unborn children can feel pain. It's a fierce debate here in the House, though, today. In January, on the day of the March for Life, GOP leaders abruptly postponed a vote on the legislation. That version exempted rape victims from the ban only if they'd reported the assault to police. The new bill requires women to receive medical care or counseling at least 48 hours before an abortion. And if an abortion doctor believes the baby could survive outside the womb, a second doctor must be present to care for the baby. And that includes taking the infant to a hospital. Despite polls showing most Americans oppose late-term abortion, Democrats continue to defend the procedure.
We have before us a bill that once more time solidifies the majority's insistence on putting political gain before women's health.
And this is a human rights issue. We are one of only 7 countries in the entire world that allow abortion on demand after 20 weeks. And I think that the American people, and we know by polls, that they're behind this, and they don't feel that it's right either to take a life of a baby that can survive outside the womb.
The bill does allow exemptions to save the life of the mother or in cases of rape. Now, the bill is unlikely to become law even with House passage. That's because its fate in the more moderate Senate is still uncertain, and President Obama is likely to veto it anyway. Brian?
Jason Calvi at the Capitol, thank you. And this vote comes on the 2nd anniversary of the conviction of Philadelphia abortionist Kermit Gosnell. He is now serving 3 consecutive life sentences for the murders of 3 babies. The babies were born alive and killed in his clinic. Susanne LaFrankie returned to that shuttered facility this week. Suzanne?
Brian, the name Gosnell still haunts many in Philadelphia. You know, Gosnell's career spanned 40 years. His trial and conviction forced the nation to examine the horrors of abortion. Pennsylvania law bans abortion after 24 weeks, and prosecutors say Gosnell aborted babies up to 7.5 months. The silhouette of a family adorns the building. The abortionist's name remains on the marquee. Investigators called Kermit Gosnell's clinic a house of horrors, where he performed countless illegal late-term abortions for decades.
We saw a lot of carnage here. We may not always see the carnage at other abortion facilities, but the same crime is still being committed.
For the past decade, Edel Finnegan led weekly prayer vigils outside Gosnell's abortion clinic. They were unaware he was routinely delivering 3rd trimester babies and killing them. Once he was discovered, the outrage was shared by pro-choice politicians.
Any doctor who cuts into the necks, severing the spinal cords of living, breathing babies is a murderer and a monster.
Investigators found fetal remains haphazardly stored in bags, orange juice cartons, in a freezer, and even in cat food containers. According to the grand jury's report, Gosnell's clinic was a filthy fraud. Prosecutors say he overdosed patients and perforated wombs and bowels. They also say he killed at least 2 women. Karna Maya Munger was one of them. The 41-year-old refugee from Nepal died from a drug overdose.
He was one cold cat.
J.D. Mullane was a crime reporter for 30 years. The testimony at Gosnell's trial of babies being born alive into toilets still haunts him.
The child described as struggling for air and struggling to get out of the commode. I think that was the one that stopped everybody in their tracks.
It was his photo of an empty media section inside the courtroom that went viral.
Really showed something that the pro-life movement had said for 40 years, that the mainstream media, the big league media mostly, ignores this issue.
Susanne LaFrankie, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Suzanne. Carol Tobias is president of the National Right to Life Committee. Marilyn Musgrave, a former member of the House of Representatives, is now vice president of the Susan B. Anthony list. So what is the significance of the House voting on this bill on the second anniversary of Gosnell's conviction?
I think it's amazing that we're able to put the two together, because Gosnell's conviction told the country that babies are being killed in the later terms of the pregnancy. Many people still didn't believe that. So now we were able to come back and say we need to protect these children, and that's exactly what we're doing today.
Marilyn, President Obama is likely to veto this. What's the point?
Tenacity. This is the first step towards saving these babies. This will be the defining issue, the abortion issue, in the 2016 races. You know, instead of candidates talking about contraception or rape, it's going to be, the discussion is going to be about banning late-term abortion. This has widespread approval among Americans, over 60%. We're only one of 7 nations that allows this. We're in bad company with the likes of China, North Korea. We don't want to be in that company. Americans know that we should ban late-term abortion.
So the ultimate goal is to ban abortion, period. How does this help us to get there?
Again, it's a step-by-step process. It's an educational process. We saw with the partial birth abortion ban debate that a lot of people are saying, well, if that's what it means to be pro-choice, that's not where I am. And a lot of them started thinking their whole position on abortion, and many of them decided that they were pro-life. They really didn't like abortion. This is another step in that direction. We're killing babies who can feel pain. And we need to stop that. And it's an awakening, it's an educational tool for America. 1/3 of Democrats say they're pro-life. Think about the potential this has to reach them. Women support this in higher numbers than the average population. Millennials support this. Latinos support it. This is a great time to be pro-life. This is common sense legislation to ban abortion after the point at which the child can feel pain.
A majority of Americans identify as pro-life now. How will this play into the 2016 elections?
You're going to see it playing a huge part. We did see it in the 2014 elections. The pain of an unborn child and abortion was used in a lot of races, and we're going to see it, I think, even more next year. Hillary will have to decide whether or not she will side with the pro-abortion crowd, with Planned Parenthood, who makes money off of abortion, with NARAL, or whether she will forsake those allies that she's had along the way. The 14 likely presidential candidates on the Republican side all support pain-capable banning abortion after the 20th week.
The line seems to be pretty clearly drawn right now anyway. Marilyn Musgrave and Carol Tobias, thank you both for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. Federal accident investigators say an Amtrak train was going over 100 miles an hour when it derailed last night. That's more than double the speed limit on that curve in the tracks north of Philadelphia's 30th Street station. At least 7 people are now confirmed dead, around 200 injured.
It is an absolute disastrous mess. Never seen anything like this in my life.
The investigation is underway in Philadelphia to try to figure out what caused an Amtrak train to fly off the tracks Tuesday night. Surveillance video shows the moment the train derailed.
It just sounds horrible. I mean, the human tragedy, the devastation, I can't imagine.
The train was en route from Washington to New York when it derailed in Philadelphia's Port Richmond neighborhood. Passengers say it was like a nightmare. The sound of scraping metal, train cars turning on their sides. Things started flying, phones, laptops, then people.
I saw so many head injuries and, bloody faces, and, people were really injured.
And I could see the blood on people's faces. They can't move. They had, their knees were out. So I just tried to do my best and help people get out of that car because it was smoking.
We started look for an exit, so we climbed out because we could smell smoke. We had to jump off the top, which is 8 feet. I had one shoe.
Temple University began receiving the injured around 10 o'clock last night.
So lots of trauma surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, everyone responded wonderfully. They really stepped up and did a great job.
We'll continue to pray for the victims and their families as that investigation continues. Eyewitnesses of the assault on Christians and other religious minorities in Iraq testify at a House committee hearing today. A Dominican sister forced from her home by terrorists asks the U.S. to help her to restore and rebuild Iraq's Christian community.
Stand with us as we, as Christians, have stood with all the people of the world and help us. We want nothing more than to go back to our lives. We want nothing more than to go home.
Sister Diana Momika reminds lawmakers Christians were Iraq's first people. Other witnesses say ISIS is trying to rewrite history by destroying entire religious communities. Death or life in prison. The judge tells jurors the choice is theirs and theirs alone to make for the convicted Boston Marathon bomber. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev's lawyers admit he participated in the 2013 bombings, but claim he was led down a path to terrorism by his older brother. In closing arguments today, prosecutors say Tsarnaev aimed to kill people and make them suffer. 3 died and more than 260 were injured when bombs exploded near the Boston Marathon finish line in 2013. For Tsarnaev to receive the death penalty, the jury must be unanimous in its decision. The Vatican today officially recognizes the state of Palestine with a new treaty. Alan Holdren, our Vatican correspondent, joining us from Rome. Alan, this really makes the position that the Vatican's held for some time official. In fact, this past year, the Vatican has referred to the Palestinian state. But why now this treaty?
Well, it appears to be the end of a long process of talking with a delegation from the state of Palestine. The Vatican has decided now to act on something that the UN recognized already 3 years ago. In 2012, the General Assembly recognized the state of Palestine. The Holy See was in agreement with that and welcomed it. This just enshrines it with this first ever treaty that officially recognizes the state of Palestine on behalf of the Holy See.
It was about a year ago that President Abbas and Israel's President Perez met with Pope Francis for peace prayer at the Vatican Gardens on Pentecost Sunday last year. Is this maybe an outgrowth of that?
Well, it really could be, Brian. This is an ongoing relationship that stretches back to the 1990s. The Holy See had a relationship with the Palestinian Liberation Organization. This relationship between Pope Francis and the president of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, is something that's been flourishing over the last couple of years. The Pope has visited there in Palestine, in the Holy Land. Mahmoud Abbas will be here again after that prayer last year. He'll be here this weekend to celebrate the canonization of the first 2 modern-day Palestinian saints. He's going to be meeting privately with Pope Francis on Saturday.
Also at the Vatican today, announcement of beefed up security. Interesting timing again. This is the 34th anniversary of the attempt on the life of John Paul II. Tell us about this new security plan.
Well, I had a lot of people asking themselves the question of whether or not this general audience on the anniversary of the general audience where John Paul II was shot had anything to do with it. I talked to the press office today. They said that it didn't. The police of Rome issued a statement today saying that it's ahead of next year's Jubilee celebrations. They want to be sure that that security is tight. They want to be sure that traffic can flow. Today, security was tight, but traffic didn't flow. So hopefully they can improve that a little bit by the time December rolls around.
Right. All right, our Vatican correspondent, Alan Holdren. Thanks for joining us, Alan.
You're welcome, Brian.
And from Capitol Hill, the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act has passed the House, an important step in the fight for life. May I thank you? Pardon me. Pope Francis says these simple phrases are the key to a happy family life.
Se avete litigato, mai finire la giornata senza fare la pace in famiglia.
And if you have a fight, never go to sleep without making up. It's not easy, the Pope says, but these words are a sign of deep love for one another, and they strengthen family life. Coming up, helping Nepal's earthquake victims becomes even more challenging after a second one on Tuesday. On this 13th of May, we honor Our Lady of Fatima. The Virgin Mary visited 3 children in Fatima, Portugal in a series of appearances beginning on this date in 1917. She returned each month for 6 months, encouraging a devotion to the Rosary. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. 6 U.S. Marines are still missing in Nepal. Their helicopter disappeared while delivering earthquake aid on Tuesday. Now, amid aftershocks, relief workers are urging people to leave damaged homes. This small mountain town has become a hub for rescue and aid workers following Nepal's initial earthquake almost 3 weeks ago. That quake killed more than 8,000 people. Another 65 died in Tuesday's quake. Landslides have blocked roads, slowing aid relief. Christy Delafield with Mercy Corps joins us by Skype from Nepal. And this second quake this week has battered an area that had become a hub for humanitarian aid. How has your aid effort been affected?
We're a little hampered. We have had to push back a delivery until tomorrow that we were supposed to make today. But everybody came into the office today and we're working as hard as we can to get back on schedule.
Have aid workers been affected by the quake? Is everybody okay? Are there casualties?
Everybody from Mercy Corps is safe. We've all checked in as safe. We have had a lot of staff members, though, be impacted in that they aren't able to live in their houses anymore. I was just visiting a coworker. He has a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old baby. He and his parents and his wife are living in a tent.
How sad. And as people try to salvage what they can from their homes, aren't they putting themselves in further danger? Because I'm sure a lot of these structures are unsafe.
Yeah, in some cases they are. People are making choices. That's what we were doing yesterday when the quake hit. I was visiting a village up in the mountains, and we were looking at some of the structures to determine if anything could be salvaged, and just thankfully weren't inside any buildings. We saw a couple of the homes we'd been looking at collapse just right before our eyes.
My goodness, is there any safe place to go? Where are people going for safety?
A lot of people are just out in the open. They put their tarps away a couple days ago and tried to go back inside, and now fresh cracks are appearing in buildings, and they're just not sure yet. So they're back outside under tarps, under tents, or if a friend's had an engineer or an architect check out a place, then they're going to live with friends.
Christy Delafield with Mercy Corps will encourage our viewers to continue to send aid to Nepal. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, to talk about the science behind these earthquakes, we have seismologist Ray Williman with us. Now we've seen 2 major earthquakes in Nepal. Just yesterday we had one in Japan. Last week, 4 strong earthquakes in the South Pacific. Is there any connection here? Do we know that, is this out of the ordinary?
Apart from aftershocks, earthquakes generally follow the pattern of random events that are timed independently. That means sometimes they'll be clustered close together in time, sometimes they'll be far apart, but there's no underlying physical cause. It's just something that happens when people or events occur at times that are determined by random processes.
That huge earthquake in Nepal 3 weeks ago, there have been a number of aftershocks. But then this quake just yesterday was technically an aftershock. Is it rare for an aftershock to be that strong?
The rule of thumb is that the largest aftershock is usually about 1 magnitude unit smaller than the main shock. But that's just a general idea. It's not exceptional that one would be a half a magnitude unit smaller. A friend of mine said to me, if there were a 5.8 followed by a 5.3, nobody would think twice about it. It's just the humanitarian disaster that's making us pay attention.
We have all kinds of storm warnings. Is there any way to detect an earthquake about to happen that people can be warned in time?
We don't have credible earthquake predictions at this time, but the U.S. Geological Survey is involved in developing a system that they call earthquake early warning. It's sort of last-minute warning that shaking is about to happen. After the earthquake occurs, the system warns people tens or more miles away that they're about to be shaken when the strong waves arrive from that earthquake. So we are making progress in rapidly alerting people that there are terrible things about to happen, but we don't yet have the ability to predict earthquakes.
Well, certainly we can plan for earthquakes. I know that some areas that are prone to earthquakes have to build accordingly. Is there any way that the study of earthquakes can be improved over time to make this a more predictable science?
Yes, certainly. There are ongoing studies all of the time to predict how strong shaking will be as a result of earthquakes that are likely to happen. And so we understand better exactly where the faults are exactly how large the earthquakes are likely to be on each fault, and how the waves get focused as they approach a basin where many cities are built on sedimentary basins. And the waves get amplified or dispersed as they travel through structure, and we can understand that better.
Well, thank you for helping us to understand this better. Seismologist Ray Williman, thanks for being with us.
Glad to be here.
Well, as aftershocks continue to shake Nepal, the head of Caritas International tells us the coming rainy season is really very concerning.
Greatest need right now is shelter, because within a month the monsoon rains will start, and it is going to last for about 3 to 4 months. That is going to change the situation totally, because all these hills which are shaken, when the rain starts coming, there are going to be a lot more of landslides.
Caritas Nepal, a branch of Catholic Relief Services, is providing shelter, water, and hygiene kits to quake victims. The aid is expected to continue for the 7 of the most devastated districts over the coming months. Up next, approaching 100 years since Our Lady's appearances at Fatima, we take you to Portugal on this feast day. And EWTN's new West Coast studio opens today on the grounds of Christ Cathedral in the Diocese of Orange. When you pray the rosary, say after each mystery, "O my Jesus, forgive us, save us from the fire of hell, lead all souls to heaven, especially those who are most in need of thy mercy." A message from Our Lady to Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta in Fatima, Portugal in 1917. Today, the 98th anniversary of the first apparition, the Feast of Our Lady of Fatima. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. I'm Brian Patrick. Tonight, thousands of pilgrims are in Portugal celebrating this Marian feast day. It's a site where many believe the Virgin Mary still works miracles. Wyatt Goolsby has that story.
Hundreds of thousands come to Fatima every year to ask the Blessed Mother to intercede for them and the Church. Last night, thousands packed the Basilica in Portugal dedicated to Our Lady of Fatima. The candlelight vigil included a procession and praying of the Rosary. For decades, the faithful have visited the shrine in Fatima, part of the Basilica of Our Lady of the Rosary, in search of cures for all types of ailments. It is said the Mother of Christ appeared before 3 shepherd children on May 13, 1917, calling for a conversion of the heart for all people. For several months, the children would see her and she would encourage them to pray the Rosary for an end to war. Pope Francis says he plans to visit Fatima for the 100th anniversary of the apparitions in 2017. Past popes have visited the shrine, most recently Pope Emeritus Benedict in 2010. We have come here to Fatima, close to the heart of Jesus' Mother Mary, in search of a boost of hope, a source of consolation and encouragement on the human journey. Pope John Paul II, who was shot in St. Peter's Square on May 13, 1981, believed the Virgin's unseen hand rescued him from death. John Paul II went on to say one hand fired and another guided the bullet. He always said Our Lady of Fatima saved his life. Here inside the John Paul II shrine, there's even a room highlighting his devotion, and fittingly, Our Lady graces the walls. In Washington, Wyatt Goolsby, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Wyatt. And EWTN's West Coast studio and offices at the Christ Cathedral campus in the Diocese of Orange, California, are now officially open. The studio, control room, and offices were blessed and dedicated in a ceremony today with Bishop Kevin Vann. EWTN Chairman of the Board, CEO Michael Warsaw, calls this a significant moment in EWTN's history, adding it will open the door to exciting new opportunities for the network in Southern California. Until tomorrow, for the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick, and we leave you tonight with these moments from today's general audience with Pope Francis in St. Peter's Square. Good night, and God bless you.